Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Torelli. I'm the chairman of the Orange County Funding Corporation and Orange County Industrial Development Agency. Today is Wednesday, October 19th, 2022, approximately 5:30 p.m. And we're going to start off with the Orange County Funding Corporation. Calling the meeting to order, we're going to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Once again, welcome everybody. Welcome all board members and consultants and staff. We have a pretty good agenda, so we're going to try to get through it with a hard stop potentially at 7:30 for some of us. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bill for roll call and notice.
Okay, Michael Torelli.
Present.
Susan Walke.
Present.
James Rinaldi.
Present.
Mark Green.
Present.
Dr. Vispinodoc.
Present.
Giovanni Palladino.
Present.
Dean Tamburi is not yet present, though he may be coming. Also, staff here, myself, Bill Fioravanti, CEO, Marty Boras, our administrative assistant, is here, and Sue Kassoff, our general counsel, is joining us remotely. And here at his first meeting, Mr. Chris Canada from Hobson Russ, our new bond counsel. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you very much.
And our consultant, I'm sorry, consultant is, of course, 88 Studios, Dennis Brady, is handling our AP for us.
Anybody from RBT?
No, not in this meeting.
Not in this
No,
meeting.
okay. Not available today.
And properly noticed?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
That is in your packet.
Check. Okay. Introduction of bond counsel. I know you just did informally. Chris, would you like to come up and say a few words to us?
Sure.
Keep it brief if you can, but
maybe that corner,
Yeah.
either corner of the pick a corner, square
here, any place you want. It's America.
You can come closer. We're feeling good about
So
going.
thanks for having me. Chris Canada with Hobson Russ, Albany, New York. I've been doing public finance law since 2001, graduated in Boston then. I'm originally from Oneida, New York, middle of the state, very middle. I practiced in Baltimore when I started out. My dad's from outside Baltimore, so where else fans you can consider that to me. I don't know if that's it. I practiced down there for 7 years and moved to Syracuse. My wife and I have 2 daughters. Her family and my family was still in Oneida. So I was a bond Citizen King for 7 years in Syracuse, and then I moved to Albany, Hobson Russ, a little over 5 years ago. So I represent IDAs and local development corporations across the state. This is all I do. I don't go into litigation and do other areas. I do public finance. That's what I do. So as bond counsel, I'm here to offer my services in the Grant Funding Corporation or the IDA issues taxes and bonds. And the federal government looks at taxes and bonds as kind of free rides. So in order to get that free ride, you have to jump through a lot of hoops. So my practice is a lot of federal tax, state tax, and federal securities law. I'm boring myself just talking about this, but that's what I do. Hobson Russ has been a firm for over 200 years, so kind of we're known in the state. And I worked with Sue over the years, and really looking forward to working with her again. So glad to be here. Happy to answer the questions that I might have. My last name is Canada. Weird. My middle name is Charles. My mother has a thing for Steve, so that's.
You're an American.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking.
Well, welcome aboard, and we look forward to picking your brain and seeing some best practices that you may represent elsewhere to potentially implement down here, and to help our applicants when they need to, and provide guidance to the board and our council and other consultants throughout the time. So, and I know we have something on the agenda today, so we do. We'll get into that in a minute. Thank you, Chris. All right. Approval of minutes.
Yes, included in your packets were the minutes from the September 21st Board of Directors meeting. So we would ask for a motion to approve, unless anyone has any changes to suggest.
Having read the minutes, I would like to give a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Sue. Can we get a second? Dr. Roda, second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Carried unanimously. With 6. Committee meetings. So we had a couple of them over the time. I apologize for missing the last board meeting. I had a previous commitment out of the country. But Finance Committee, while we didn't have quorum per se, Mark and I were in attendance with staff, and we continue to review all the financials, both the statements and the payables. And while it's an informal recommendation, because the committee didn't, like I said, have quorum, we are making the recommendation to accept financials and accept payables as presented. We'll go into that in a minute. If you have any questions about them, we can answer them, or staff can answer them, as well as the resiliency loan update, which we're getting closer to the end. Other than that, it appears that his Finance Committee has been meeting more regularly, and one of the things under new business will be committee assignments. So we'll go into that as well a little bit later. So on the committee meetings, that's the finance. And Bill, if you just want to walk us through the OCFC portion of the committee meeting and what you're presenting to us for full approval.
Sure, yeah. Essentially, we had a September financials, and I'm trying to govern myself to not go into details because we did so in the finance committee. So if anyone has questions, certainly can ask them. It's certainly what this is about. But otherwise, the finance committee did do that in detail. So we have that. Also, the COVID resiliency loan update. Just a brief recap. That is 49 loans that were dispersed, 21 paid in full, 28 partially. Of the 28 partial payments, 10 are current, 18 are behind, various degrees, and 3 have not paid anything to date. We are working with RBC on a payoff, or I'm sorry, a write-off amount, but we actually discussed that with Shannon this week, and she thinks that's really more due at the end of the year towards the audit time. I just have a common sense question about it. We wrote off $75,000 and then another 70. Only $90,000 is unpaid from the entire original disbursement. Can you write off more than is unpaid? So I think that's something we're looking at. And she said she'd like to work with the auditors on coming up with this, exactly what that figure should
be. A big number here for everyone to look at. 80% of this resiliency loan fund has been repaid. So I think that's pretty successful. Obviously,
I have comment on that. You would ask me to, so I spoke to our colleagues around the region. Many of them did not do a loan fund, actually. They did it as
many of them didn't have the funding to do a loan.
Some didn't have the funding, absolutely. And some did them more as grants because they weren't counting on the money getting repaid. Now, I know Sue is in here, so she can't smack me when I use the word grant, but that's not what we're not in the business of grants. But obviously, it was a unique time under COVID, and New York State allowed ideas to do loan grants around this issue. So most have not actually weren't expecting it. Another one said that actually Montgomery, they asked for grants as well because they were concerned about how cumbersome the loan process were paying, which we know well. And we'll note Mr. Stanbury's here. Thank you, sir. We got full slate, no problem at all. So I think we went the extra mile in making these loans and not grants, but from talking to all our colleagues, the idea of writing them off is not, foreign because again, many of them were planning on not getting feedback at all, so they ended up making them grants. Cool. So I agree with you, especially given the conditions, the situation that all these businesses were in. I think it's a pretty good number. And we hope by May is what we're estimating to really have this be ending. Last thing on there, if I could, Mr. Chairman, from this report is under the September-October payables. Just one of note is the Village of Highland Falls, that facade restoration fund. That there's a bill for $190 for engineering work, and there's a balance of just over $3,000 of that fund. It is scheduled to end at the end of this year, but as we did at the end of 21, we could extend it to allow them to disperse to access the remainder of those funds into 2023. But that's something we can deal with in a month or two.
Okay. All right. So with that, I will entertain a motion on the financial reports, the resiliency loan update, and we'll do one at a time. I'm sorry. On the financial reports, any questions, concerns from board members? Without that, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to accept the financials as presented to the committee.
Okay. Second. Mark, a second. Any discussion from board members? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Carried unanimously with 7. COVID-19 resiliency loan update. I think we vote on that, don't we?
I don't think we have.
No, that's just an up and down, because there's not, and then the September, October payables. Entertain a motion to accept them as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Sue. Second? Second. Dean, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carried unanimously with 7. All right, new business, moving right along. Phil, you'd like to present, what we're talking about in regards to the audit?
Absolutely. We had one response to our audit for an RFP to handle its fiscal years 2022 and 2023. As I talked about last month, we really provided a very tight time frame. We heard from a number of firms, and most said we're not able to respond. We just can't do it in time. But we did get a response from PKF O'Connor Davies. They acquired our former auditor, Jellison, Giordano, and Siegel. So they did propose to handle both the audit for OCFC and for the Orange County IDA. I just want to verify our the quote for IDA. The fee would be $6,000, and I was asked to compare that to past audits. Actually, both the amount for this, and we'll talk about IDA in a moment, are lower than what we had been paying. So $6,000 for OCFC is what was quoted. In 21, it was $6,500, $5,250 the year before that, and $6,000 in 2019. So it is right in line with that. And Sue, you had asked about the scope, and the scope is in line with prior audits. So just for OCFC, $6,000 for 2022 audit. And to be clear, and I've been clear with this agency, with the firm, we will most likely put the RFP out again when there is more time for other firms to respond. This RFP again was 22 and 23, but I made it clear to PKF that we would only hire them for 22, and then they are free to, of course, submit again for 23 and beyond. We probably would do 23, 24 in this next RFP. So we would like to have the board's approval to engage them for the 2022 OCFC audit.
Great. Any questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve. I'll make that motion. Second?
Second.
Do second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carried unanimously with 7.
Very good.
Thank you. And more than likely, we'll talk about this in finance, or in audit. Yeah, in audit committee, and then give the recommendation probably.
Absolutely.
Move forward with another RFP. Not that we want you to see costly, but it's something that we want to give everyone a shot at this.
For sure. It's something we haven't re-procured in
Yeah.
many years, so that was the whole reason we went out as soon as possible.
Yeah. All right, next item, vote on resolution to reissue bonds for the Centennial Realty of Port Jervis.
Okay, well,
you, Chris, want to give us an update on what this is?
Yes, sir. We wanted Mr. Canada to have something to talk about right off the bat, so this worked out quite well. Sentinel Realty of Port Jervis. I'm not going to get too deep in here, Chris. You're going to save me here, but this relates to the conversion of the interest rate index on Sentinel Realty's OCFC issued bonds from LIBOR to SOFR. LIBOR is the London Interbank Offered Rate, and SOFR is the Secured Overnight Financing Rate. Yes, I need my notes for that. Thank you. And I know it is always asked, Sentinel is in good standing with us in terms of reporting for Paris and things like that. That's something the board is always mindful of, so we'll let you know we did our due diligence there, and they are in good standing. But beyond that, Chris, if you could explain the situation and the request.
Yeah, so we're getting a lot of these in bond council. LIBOR officially done that June 30th next year. It's been around for a long time. What happened was we got contacted by bank council letting us know that, hey, we want to switch the trade from LIBOR to SOFR. We're contacting the borrower. How do we do this? So typically, when we're bond council, we have the issuer authorize the resolution, just authorizing modifications of bond documents. That's the clearest way it's done. Sometimes you can rely on the original authorizing resolution of bonds. We can do that. So this would authorize folks here to execute documents. What they execute, I think, will be the chair. I'm not sure how you handle it in terms of signing actual bond documents. So
That's a good question.
Yeah. Well,
Figure that one out. We have had
Exactly.
We authorize Bill this as well. So it's authorized the chair, vice chair, Dean, and also Bill to sign documents related to authorizing Bill with modification. The agenda mentions a reissue. So if the bonds are considered reissued under federal tax purposes, then certain other documents have to be signed. They have to fill out a new Form 8038 to be filed with the IRS in connection with that. So we don't think this will be a reissue. It's just typically as these come in, as they go from LIBOR to SOFR, you're not really munching too much of the basis point adjustment, which is just the interest rate on the bonds. So we don't think it's a reissue. But this resolution says in case we find it's a reissue, it authorizes those documents to also be executed. We go down that, we don't have to come back to the start all over again and authorize that reissuance process. So it's kind of one size fits all in this resolution. So,
And Sentinel Realty in Port Jervis is a assisted living / facility that's
yeah,
right. A great asset to the community. I mean, everyone, you know, we have a bunch of them throughout the area, but each one of them is a prize amongst themselves, you know, and great to have in the community.
And you know, the only thing, guys, we have said it in the past, any reissuing, whatever, it's not gonna cost county taxes, it's not gonna cost anything from us, correct? And if there's any fees or anything like that, that we're not.
right. And any fees for bond counsel, which I'll have to put the document, that's boarded by the company, by the borrower. So,
Which, to be clear, we covered this in Chris's interview and with all the other respondents to our RFP for bond counsel. We'll have a copy of what is being billed to the applicant, the client, however you want to put that. So we're always aware of exactly what they're being billed. Correct, Chris? Terrific. And Mr. Chairman, if I could, not to grind this to a halt, but since we do have Chris now, we have a bond expertise right here. Could we ask just a couple of questions? I know, Giovanni, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you know, as a new member, just a couple of basic questions about bonds that we have. Can I let you?
Yeah, my question is, I'm always the type of person to ask, what's the foundation or the root? How does the idea ever get involved in bonds? You know, how did issuing bonds? Just out of curiosity.
yes, so the IDA is authorized under the IDA statute, Federal Municipal Law, Article 18A, to issue bonds on its behalf. So, and there's a specific tax exemption in the IDA statute. So the OCFC is a not-for-profit corporation under New York State law. They are also authorized under that statute to issue bonds. So you can issue tax-exempt bonds and taxable bonds. It used to be the spread between tax-exempt bonds and taxable bonds was wide. So, you know, a borrower would always favor tax-exempt bonds. That's kind of narrowed a little bit, but historically, it will go back to being a better rate, better for tax-exempt bonds. So just to give you a back up a little bit, as a borrower, if you go to a bank and they say, okay, we'll loan you money at 8%, 9%, whatever it is, it's a better cost of borrowing to have tax-exempt bonds. And you get a much better rate. It's usually, it used to be 4, now it's 5 or 6, but traditionally it's made money by going through an IDA or OCFC. That's a problem, but the government says, well, hold on, you get this better rate, your interest is tax-exempt, that's why investors buy it. But it's not giving the federal government all that interest, right? It's taxes at that interest that they usually get. So they say, well, it's because it's for a good public purpose, assisted living, universities, colleges. We'll let you have that, but you have to have these very specific rules. That's what I.
And only certain industries or certain applicants are eligible.
Correct. Typically, for the OCFC, it will be 501c3 borrowers.
Yeah.
Okay. Colleges, hospitals, universities, nursing homes.
And we've done some of them recently with St. Luke's on a
Expansion of their emergency.
extension of their emergency room and potentially Mount St. Mary's College.
Yeah, Mount St. Mary's, the last piece they did was a refinance. It was original bond for capital improvement on the campus, but we recently essentially refinancing.
Yeah.
Their,
In all three of those occasions, those were examples of the previous boards already did this, and this is just coming back to us for these types of resolutions to change. We've yet to see a brand new one yet, but it's something that with Chris's help and with staff's expertise on this, we could potentially look forward to in the future, maybe to assist these eligible type entities, whether they're not-for-profits or for-profit, to potentially do this. So it's part of our business plan. It's part of, I'll say, our mosaic of stuff that we can do to incentivize projects. Maybe at a future time, we can get like what that mosaic would look like, you know, what can come in front of what, and maybe what type of marketing would be good to go out in front of these entities, whether we talk to bankers or we talk to the initial applicants or others that are looking maybe even to expand. And maybe there's people out there that it's not just for new projects coming in, it could be for expansions of existing projects. And as we know, we're growing here in Orange County. I can't say that across the state, but we are growing, and that's another opportunity I think that we can potentially offer. So, all right. So with this, I just want to vote on the follow. Well, I'd like to vote on the resolution that we could potentially, unless someone has a question about the resolution, then we'll go into questions for Bondcast. I'd like to get that out of the way if we can. Yeah. Unless we have just specific questions about the resolution. So with that, I'll entertain a motion on the resolution to reissue of bonds for Sentinel Realty at Port Jervis. Anyone like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Team makes a motion. Second, second. Dr. Rodak, second. Any questions, concerns? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Carried unanimously. Okay, back to questions. Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to get that out of the way.
Can you explain where and how the money flows into the funding court that goes out in bonds?
He is talking it. Yeah, he is.
I don't think it's money that flows out. But
Where's it come from?
It comes in.
Comes from where?
right.
We are asking you, Chris.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't know what to answer that.
So, let's just talk about taxes and bonds. So, a lot of the time it's underwriters in New York City to the investment bank.
Chris Canada, I'm sorry. I don't need to hear you better because I know the words you're going to say, but from someone who is remoting on, it sometimes is hard to hear you. So if you came closer to the mic, the recording would work better. Thank you.
So from around where you were would be great, so there you go.
Sure. So a tax-exempt bond, oftentimes there's underwriters, which are investment banks, and they are constantly contacting hospitals, colleges, nursing homes, and saying, hey, you should do that project, right? Or, hey, you should refund the old bonds because the rate's better now. So what they do is they go to negotiations and they set up negotiations with the borrower, and then they go out and try to sell the bonds in the public market. Okay, usually through an official statement, which is a fancy way of saying it's a prospectus that you send out to people to try to get them to buy your bond. Okay, that money, eventually the underwriter buys those bonds. You're just the conduit. They have to go through you to get the tax status on the interest on those bonds. You're a pipe that has to go through you. The money doesn't come through the you folks or the IDA. If the IDA issues bonds, the money typically is held by goes to a trustee. Trustee's job, they're a third party, they're also a bank. They act as, they protect the bondholders. If anything happens, they institute acceleration. The money's now due. So they're acting on the bondholders' behalf. But they control the funds, how the money goes in and out to the borrower. You have to requisition those funds. So you folks, the money never goes into your accounts. Obviously, you get a fee based on our amount of bonds, but the money never goes to you. There's no liability to you personally or to the entity, whether it's the IDA or the OCFC. Does that make sense?
That's me.
Okay.
So no risk to us.
There's no risk to you.
Yeah, we're a conduit.
You're a pipe.
Yeah, pipe. Yeah, just like every other IDA, OCFC, that's.
You know?
And it's worth noting, I think also that when they go to sell the bonds, they're not being sold on your credit. They're being sold on the credit of the applicant, the company who's doing the project. So really, you are truly a conduit. It has nothing to do with you. And should there ever be a default on those bonds, the bondholder cannot come back to the IDA for any type of recovery. So you are completely insulated.
Great.
All right.
Anybody have anything else?
All right.
Good.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. There you go. All right. Next agenda item, the vote on committee assignments. Everyone should have a page in front of them. We need to vote on this in both the OCFC and the IDA. But you'll see what we've done here is staff put together a listing of our existing committees. The required committees per law, per statute, are the governance, finance, and audit committees. We also have a resiliency loan committee, which really is coming to an end, so there's no really committee on that. We just use that in an agenda when we talk about it. Accelerator committee, and if we want to or need to in the future, do a human resources committee. Accelerator committee also talks about a lot of stuff, potentially even with shovel readiness. So here at this point, I'd like to present adding the people that are, was that green or red?
Red.
Colorblind. And we're looking to do it so we have 4 in each committee. And this is not the be all end all. We can change these at any time. We can add to them, and we can also form more committees at a future time. Committee assignments are broken up so that we try not to overburden everybody with having to do too much. Various committees meet at various frequencies, where probably the most frequent one is finance, because we try to get all the stuff out of the way, I'll say, in review of financial stuff before each meeting. Audit committee will be pretty busy coming up because we have an end of year audit. Governance, while we have some plans for governance, we don't have one assigned or scheduled yet, but this is going to be stuff that we talk about, maybe changing bylaws, adding wording to different policies or procedures that we have. And obviously the accelerator committee is about the various accelerators that we have and have divested from. So with that, this is the presentation. Any comment? I don't think we overtaxed or overburdened anybody but myself. Yeah, thank you, Bill. I will remember that for the rest of my life. With that, I'll entertain a motion to accept the committee assignments as presented.
So moved.
All right, Jim. Second? I'll second. Thank you, John. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Bill, for putting that together and making it easy for us to understand.
Yes, thank you all for taking that on. Question?
I apologize for that. It's like, so we're gonna have a new schedule, same schedule, just kind of close to it.
Same
You
schedule.
guys send it out fine, but.
Yes, which I don't think, I'm not sure if I've shared the calendar with you guys, and Chris, I'll make sure I send it to you as well. In November, so basically finance, as the chairman said, is the most frequent and the most in-depth because we go over all the financials, every payable, all of that, as we've been doing since this board was appointed. Governance is generally quarterly. Audit is 2 times a year, unless it is currently part of our local labor policy that any waivers that are submitted by an applicant, a project, looks for a waiver from to exempt them from part of the local labor policy. That goes to the audit committee. So as those are needed, we may schedule an audit committee for that. We did talk about one for Walgreens, which we'll get into. We had an audit committee meeting already scheduled, so last month, so we did earlier this month. So we talked about it then. Accelerator, a couple times a year, we may phase that out once we're done with the accelerators. And governance, I think I mentioned is quarterly. So November, we actually have a governance meeting, Tuesday, November 7th. Our finance meeting is Tuesday, November 14th, and our board meeting is on the 15th. We do have an accelerator committee meeting scheduled for December. That's the only other than the finance committee that is scheduled right now.
And like with everything else, I mean, all of our committee meetings are fully open and transparent. They're recorded, and any board member can attend them. If you feel like you want to add something to it, please attend. If you cannot attend and you want to add some comment, you should receive the information ahead of time. If you want us to focus on something, please let staff know or myself know, and we can definitely talk about it in greater detail. So that's where we're at with that. But thank you, everyone, for committing to be on these committees, because that's where a lot of the bulk of the work gets done.
Yes, thank you.
Cool. All right.
Doctor.
I can track of assistance here, right?
Oh, yes, you can. And just sign that, please. Sign the resolution for that.
Last for new business on OCFC is the vote on the 2026 draft budget. The reason why we're doing this at this time, because it's part of our requirement to put into the state. This is just a draft, a placeholder. We're not actually voting on the actual budget. We're voting on allowing staff to enter it into the Harris reporting system, which has to have 4 years or 3 years?
The next 4 years.
The next 4 years. So 2023, we've already voted on, and that's something that I don't think is in stone, but that's our working template for 2023. And every subsequent year, we will be doing that prior to that year going into effect. This is just a placeholder. Exactly. We have that for the OCFC on the back side of proposed annual budgets, which is what, page 3 of that?
It is the last page of OCFC.
And it's the last column.
It's the last column, but I do want to clarify that I reworked the earlier ones as well, just because now that we have a new budget, I was shooting the dark to a degree, and I put the 2022 budget in. So especially when I was looking from 23 to 25. So not only did I add 26, but working off what we approved for next year, I've revised 24 and 25 and 26. I would probably consider those draft budgets that you're approving that go into pair, right? So, any comments, but you can see, going off from left to right, you can kind of see how it evolves. I expect some things to fluctuate, but this too is conjecture to a degree. But it's in line with everything you approved and know of for 23 and beyond. Again, the last page is just OCFC. Any questions? I'm here to answer.
So with that, I'll entertain a motion. Do we need it for 24, 25, and 26?
Yes.
Yeah. So for 24 through 26, 2024 through 2026 draft budgets for entering into credits.
I'm gonna make that motion.
Thanks, Sue. Second. Thank you, Mark. Any questions, concerns? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carried unanimously. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the OCFC unless there's anything else we need to talk about.
Yes, sir.
All right,
6 p.m.
6 p.m. Check. Okay.
We
One down.
have a formal motion on that.
Oh, yes. Yes, formal, thank you. Formal motion to, anyone like to make a motion to adjourn the OCFC portion of the meeting?
I'm gonna move that we adjourn.
Thank you, Sue. Second? Dr. Odak? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Carried unanimously.
Somebody's gonna keep you honest up there.
I know. Sometimes I try to go too fast, but I apologize. All right, now we'll be opening up the Orange County IDA portion of the meeting. Once again, we already have the meeting. And Bill, roll call once again.
Yes. Michael Torelli,
Present.
Gene Tantori,
Present.
Susan Walsky,
Present.
James Rinaldi, Mark Green,
Present.
Dr. Vincent Odak,
President.
Giovanni Palladino.
Present.
All members present.
7, check. Proof of notice, everything noticed?
That is in
appropriately?
your packet as well. You see that this is properly noticed with adequate time.
Great, perfect. We have bond counsel, so bond counsel's still
He's
here.
still here.
So I will entertain, if anyone wants to talk to Chris, if he sticks around, if we have enough time later, if we could do it after the meeting, you can ask him, anything that you want to ask, or if we could do it during open business. Minutes from September 21st. Any questions, concerns? If none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented for September 21st, 2022.
So moved.
Thank you, Sue. Second? I'll second. Thank you, John. Any questions, concerns? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carried unanimously. Committee meetings. Bill, you want to bring us through and working with Dr. Odak on audit committee?
Sure. So if you don't mind, Doctor, I'll give a quick summary. We won't be voting on this until we get to new business, but this is just a recap. We did talk about our audit, of course, 2022, everything I talked about in the prior meeting with OCFC. PKF O'Connor Davies is the only real respondent. I will tell you that there, again, on the fee comparison, their quote is for OCIDA audit is $15,500. Our prior audit, 2021, was $18,500. In 2020, $18,076. In 2019, $17,500. So again, lower than what we've been paying. I don't know if there's some economies of scale with the new acquisition and the larger firm, a much larger firm. PKF is a very large, but regardless, or just a more aggressive price. But the scope and the proposed fee are in line. Okay, yeah, we're not voting there. Sorry. Reissuing the 2023, I talked about that, putting the RFP back out after this is done. And then I'm just going to touch on the Walgreens local labor waiver request. So the project already approved, the incentives are approved for Walgreens, 200 jobs at pharmaceutical micro-fulfillment center, proposed to the town of Newburgh. They had only sought sales tax exemption from the IDA on specific high-tech robotic picking equipment for the micro-fulfillment center. And which does seem to be typical for these types of projects with equipment like this, sorting and picking equipment, that oftentimes they'll contend that the installation must be done by a certified installer in order to not void the warranty. So they did submit a waiver saying such. And there isn't a rush because there is a little hiccup right now with the Walgreens project. They're waiting for some approval from New York State. So it isn't like we need to rush this through. And we're going to do our due diligence to make sure that we can't find local labor that could do it. Being certified, that's something we'll look at. I did actually visit one of our neighbors' projects in the town of Fishkill, the new Amazon sorting and distribution center there. And there are some significant, I really should share some pictures in a little video I took to see just what an elaborate operation that is. But that was actually performed by a local union trade, the millworks, part of the carpenters union in this region, and they have specialty workers that do that. So that's just one example of some connections I've made locally, trying to go out there and really do our due diligence.
And that example received IDA benefits from Dutchess County.
They sure did.
15-year pilot.
Absolutely. And under the local labor policy, of course. So they did have to work through that. So I just want to be clear on that. We're going to bring it back to you, back to the audit committee for approval, but not until we do our due diligence. So I'm going to continue to do that work. And this is a new area for us to try and discover what local labor is available for this type of work, rather than being a rubber stamped audit or a waiver request just simply because they say it's special.
And every single person that they can hire locally, whether it's 85% like our policy says or something they're close to, is a win. So whatever you can do, that's great. We look forward to that coming back to the audit committee, and more importantly, we look forward to hopefully that project coming to fruition. I say hopefully because there are some hiccups at the state level that are pretty serious.
Yes, roadway issues.
So we hope that they can get them solved because $100,000 per year jobs are nice.
Absolutely.
The project's under construction.
Yeah, the developer
the shell is
yeah.
the outside. They're going to be building on the inside. So
with a lot of local labor, there's a lot of people locally working there and being supplied from there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we're hoping it continues because otherwise they could just market that space.
That's something else.
Walgreens actually agreed to take more space, far more than they wanted, because they, it's a great location, especially with the benefits. But otherwise it would be remarketed for another project.
And again, there you'll have axles going over toll.
Yes, absolutely. True. Yeah, to your point last month. Yes.
All right. So that's a great update on committee. Next committee would be finance. I'll briefly give that again. Once again, we didn't have quorum, but we did speak about the financial reports and the payables with staff. And while it's an informal recommendation, the recommendation from who was there was to accept the financial reports as given to the board, or send them to the board for approval, as well as the payables. So what we have is, Billy, do you want to just briefly walk us through that? I think it starts on page 7 is the financials. And then the payables. And one note that we will make is that, we'll do this in open business, is that we didn't make any recommendations on the investment side of things just yet, but we did have a discussion not offline, but we did have a discussion about a potential gain. So we'll bring that up in new business, and we'll open that up for discussion.
Yeah, exactly. I got a pass.
So we'll do one thing at a time, but let's go through financials first. So we have the financials as presented.
Yes, and again, they were examined by the finance committee, but just as the chairman said, starting on page 7, just looking at this month's actuals, September of 22, interest earnings from our investments is close to $5,500. I mentioned this last time, larger than I thought it was going to be. I think it's really showing that there's an opportunity to really earn some serious interest here. Again, we're not in the business of doing that and just trying to stockpile cash and increase that. But it is our responsibility to make sure that we are not just sitting on that money and earning nothing, but at least even on a short-term basis being invested. So it shows that there's something to that. Continue to get our rents from our subtenants, the accelerator tenants. We recently paid our insurance, some other fees there as well. The rest is all kind of in line, typical from what you'd normally see, including all the way down to the employee benefits line. All of that is typical. Yeah, nothing else out of line. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Any questions? If not, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the financials as presented, which is page 7, 8, and 9.
Yes, and page 10, I guess I would include in that, which is basically, I didn't go over that, but our our checking accounts, money markets, CDs, so you get a sense of really cash and liquid assets amounting for the IDA of just over $9.6 million.
Yeah, that reflects some of our new stuff that we recently done.
Correct.
Right, so 7.10. Any questions, concerns? With that, I'll entertain a motion to accept.
I'm gonna make a motion to accept the financials as presented to the committee.
Thank you, Sue. Can I get a second? Thank you, Mark. Any questions, concerns? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Unanimously.
Good.
All right, Bill, let's do some payables.
Okay, so payables, I'm just trying to think, we're looking
Page
here,
11.
starting on page, yes, thank you, page 11 and 12. See how much of this is I won't go through our usual monthly utilities and stuff, because the board did approve us to pay 3 months of those types of bills in advance. That covers our cleaning, our rent, our cans, our copier, those types of things, water, clean water and such, sanitation as well. You will note our payment to Dan's Electrical Group. That's actually our Middletown Accelerator lease payment for October and November. I'll just remind you that lease, you will not see any further payments for that because our lease expires November 25th and we'll be out of Middletown Accelerator. Yeah. I know that's a relief for a lot of folks. Cleaning on here are typical using two of our credit cards to make payments, such as our IT related and communications related expenses. And then we did have an ad. This isn't something I talked about, but Orange County was featured in a regional document, a regional publication, I should say, called Real Estate in Depth. Actually, when I first started, they did a piece on me called A Conversation with Bill Giovanni, which was nice because I got to talk about the IDA and where we're headed and all of that. Well, they did an Orange County piece. They focused on different months, on different counties in different months. We put an ad in for the IDA in support of the Orange County edition, which was a nice ad. And actually, 88 Studios helped us with that. Did that quickly. I can share that with you if anyone has any interest. So that's on there as well. And then we have been adding, at the chairman's request, a line here at the very end of this report on page 12, which shows just our staff gross wages. It's just so you are approving what's being paid in that regard. But we're looking for approval of a grand total of payments for September, October of $67,126.21.
Do these one at a time, or are we doing?
Did you want to do one? That's
Yeah,
typically how we do. So that's all. That's recurring on page 12.
Yeah.
So we were just doing group approval.
Yeah, quick approval, yeah.
Okay, so I'll go through
Yeah,
each of
so
them.
now page 13.
Page 13, there are our contracted services, essentially. Low-key Grill for the remainder of their local labor monitoring service before we move to our new firms, which we have been onboarding Land and Fellinser for new projects. General counsel payment, our internet, and our payment to our CFO for hire, RBT CPAs. That's a grand total of $10,509.49. And the third tranche is all other. We do have in here a pass-through. We've done this a couple of times where we take money from the IDA account, put it into a specific business accelerator account for $100,000. That is just an internal transfer to cover bills. But I will report to you that we talked about this in finance. Kelly is working with our local banks to eliminate a business accelerator account and have just a checking account for the IDA. We have no separation. We're trying to eliminate everything with the accelerator name on it. And of course, the real concern of that, it goes back to a time where they were using accounts and different processes to basically hide what the expenses were. So we're going in the opposite direction, trying to be fully transparent. And between that, we did have
the goal there is we're going to try to have that done before. So the first of the year, we don't use that account anymore.
Absolutely. And it looks like we're going to have no problem doing that. Let's see, there's a fee on there from attending Orange County Association of Town, Villages, and Cities meeting. And we had.
Which you're making a presentation at next month. Anybody who would like to attend, please let Bill know.
Right? Yeah, it is.
Deer
Actually. That's right, in Deer Park. So I'll be presenting to that group. Great. I'm just getting a call. Sorry. And lastly, one of our Warwick Accelerated tenants had a problem with the lock, and the town does a great job supporting us. They had a locksmith come out, but the bill comes to us. It was heftier than I thought, with $690 in there. So a grand total with that internal transfer, $100,725, again, under the all other category, page 14.
All right. Any questions or concerns?
Just real quick, I know we talked about it last week. The copy machine, did you get a chance to just edit nitpicky? But did you get a
No,
chance to-
absolutely. We did look at that. Thank you. Kelly looked into that in depth. There is to move it, there's a $300 fee. And then there is a fee to actually bring it, remove it from the premises altogether to give it back. And you cannot ask to have it removed until it's within 90 days of the expiration of that lease. So sometime in December is when we could say that we want to have it removed. We've been analyzing whether or not we moved it to the Warwick Accelerator, which does not have a copier right now, but probably only one of those tenants feels they need it. Probably going to be cheapest if we just pay off the remainder and we have it removed as soon as possible. And if it has to stay in Middletown to save us expense, we were planning to approach our landlord there to say, can we just keep it in its spot or in a closet for 1 month until it's eligible to be picked up?
And I think you brought it up, security, just making sure that.
Absolutely. So if we kept it in Middletown, that would have to be the stipulation. The landlord would have to be able to secure either the room that it's already in, it's not being used, or there is talk about Touro Medical College students using that space, in which case we'll have it put into a room where it's locked. We'll move it if we have to, but it'll cost us an extra $300 for that. So I'm just trying to minimize this expense because we're not going to be using it, for the last couple of months, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks for following up on that.
Yeah, questions, concerns? All right. I'd like to accept the motion to accept the September-October payables. Motion. Thank you, Dean. Second?
Second.
Second, Sue. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carried unanimously. All right, new business.
So we handled 1 and 2. The third is just like we did in OCFC, approval of allowing staff to engage PKF O'Connor Davies to handle our 2022 financial annual audit, with the idea that we'll go to RFP later this year.
All right, so we discussed this before. Any questions? Let me say, entertain a motion to accept. That's presented. Dean, Sue seconded.
There you go.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, carried unanimously. Okay, next on the agenda is vote on marketing PR firm. As you remember, as part of our 2022 RFP processes of reprocuring everything in the world for this agency, staff has done an unbelievable job. And in this instance, we've asked staff to go out with an RFP, which was previously issued. And while this is something that they would have to work with on a daily basis almost, we asked them to conduct all the interviews and not burden the board with having to have everyone come in and make presentations. And I'll turn it over to Bill on everything that is in relation to marketing PR firm and his recommendation.
Sure, thank you very much. So yes, we put our RFP out a couple of months ago, and we had 6 responses, all local firms, all with a presence in Orange County, most of them actually based in Orange County. Just like with the Shovel Ready RFP, or that was an RFQ in that case, but I was thrilled with the responses. It's nice to know after the difficult 1.5 to 2 years we've had, and that we were frankly toxic or radioactive or whatever term we want to use, that it was nice to know that firms want the right caliber want to work with us. So that was the case with Shovel Ready. That was exciting. That made it a more difficult process. Same thing with marketing and PR. I don't have to tell you how important that is. Not only do we want to market our services, our benefits for business attraction, but we have a lot of work to do to educate the public on truths versus facts over IDAs in general, the Orange County IDA, all of that, and to gain new followers. So we, again, had 6 responses. We interviewed all of them. We had a number, because it was so challenging, these firms were just, the proposals were excellent. They weren't really, there wasn't even one we could just throw out, frankly. So we had a lot of follow-up research and calls. I am recommending that we engage with Capacity Marketing. They're based in Middletown and East Main Street. They're part of another group, Capacity Consulting, that does a lot of local feasibility studies and such. Really, their strength is that, unlike some of the other proposals, They are one of the few full-service marketing and PR firms that we received a proposal for. So in some cases, some firms are focused more on digital marketing, especially social media, and they have incredible expertise. Well, Capacity has that, and they are more of a traditional firm also in that they issue press releases for us, help us place articles in various publications, editorials, things like that. So they have a more traditional mindset and approach and cutting-edge digital expertise when it comes to email marketing, like a constant contact type of use to maybe put out a newsletter, and again, digital marketing. And there are a number of these firms that we interviewed that have incredible expertise with that, where they have experts and certified personnel in Google Ads and Google Analytics, as well as the analytics behind the Meta platforms, Facebook and Instagram. So, and those change the algorithms that determine if your posts show up in front of which eyeballs. They're constantly changing. So, which is incredible. But again, there's some firms specializing in that really blew us away in that regard. But Capacity also has that expertise between digital, again, social media, maximizing algorithms there, maximizing how and when to boost posts. So first to pay a reasonable amount, a modest amount, I would say, to make sure that these posts get in front of other people. And they have expertise around SEO or search engine optimization, so that when companies especially are they'll look at Orange County for real estate, they're looking about incentives, that we come right up there. We want to make sure, in some cases, some of our partner agencies here have really overtaken us in that regard. And even if some people are looking for incentives, they're going to another website, not to us. So we want to maximize that. And we wanted a full program, meaning there's a strategy, but actually spelled out month by month what areas we're going to be hitting in these different respective segments of marketing and PR. And this will lead into, I've kind of hinted at it before, I want to keep it out of this, but do a reworking of our website. There are some structural issues because it's an older site that's been built on. And it's very data heavy because of our transparency needs for transparency. All of our active projects, which is over 70 projects, and active, just to be clear, means that if it's a pilot, a 15-year pilot, well, until that pilot expires, it's an active project. They're in the middle of one of our incentives. So because of all that information, the documentation that's on there, it's very data heavy. So we're keeping it separate, but this is also a firm that can help us with that reworking. It's currently being maintained by 88 Studios as well. Again, we had tremendous proposals, but this seemed to just have everything that we need in, again, more cutting edge and more traditional. And this is for a one-year engagement. Again, it was a difficult decision. I'll say it one more time, but I'm most comfortable going with them for this year. Let's see how the year pans out, and I'll be coming back to you to tell you how everything's going. And I would certainly look for the opportunity to bring the firm in to present once the strategy has been set and the plan is in place.
One thing I would just add to what Bill stated, during this RFQ process, one of the things we worried about was scope, right? This is not a marketing program in the millions of dollars, obviously. So we have $48,000 in our budget for 2022. No, for 2023.
No, for 2022, and then 60 for 2023.
And we're not using all of it in 2022. So the idea was this is around a $60,000 program, but as Bill has things he wants to do that are significant, he would come to the board and look for our approval in the payable section of this, especially if there's anything new. I mean, if we're just talking about helping with the PR release or something like that, that's kind of like a regular expense on specific things. The other thing is, with this, you said it was 1 year, so we'll be able to assess and see if we want to maintain and compete or go out with another RFQ or RFP later on. And then thirdly, with this, it doesn't mean that 88 Studios is leaving. 88 Studios does that big. They've been great to us, and they've helped us not only with these meetings, but with a lot of stuff in between. So it doesn't mean we're getting rid of, even though they have some.
Yeah, they still handle our audio visual, our live streaming and everything. And I agree, they've done a great job. So, and they did propose, they had a proposal for marketing PR, and it was very impressive as well. But we are staying with them for now for audio visual and live streaming. So we do appreciate their service.
now with the capacity marketing, have they shown us a list of firms they've worked with, I mean, in the past?
Yes, one that we talked about quite a bit was Marshall and Sterling Insurance here locally. Big operation and a lot of communications that go on, and they've done a great job for them. And I spoke to someone of their firm, and they raved about them. Let me see if I have some other lists here. So they look for this proposal. Try to do that quickly. That's the one we talked about an awful lot.
Okay. Well, Bill's looking at that, we've talked about different things, with adding things, that here or there, whatever, so we went through the RFP before, about a couple times.
Yeah.
Talking about which picture,
Absolutely.
whatever we incorporated. So.
Yeah, they've also worked with Advanced Testing Company here locally, with the Sullivan County Partnership in Sullivan, United Brain Association, Orange Bank and Trust, Here's Health Staffing and Recruiting, and a couple outside the area, Joseph Grace Brands, the Vermont Evaporator Company, American Cancer Society. So they've done a lot of work both in Orange County and throughout the region.
And they're also active members of the Orange County Chamber.
Absolutely. No question.
In fairness, I know Eric.
Oh, you do? Okay. And one of the things I like about Eric in both his capacity consulting, which again, more feasibility studies and such, impact assessment. They actually did the white paper for Sullivan County when they were applying for the casino license. They did an economic study on that. It's what I really liked about his approach is it's research-based. He very oftentimes follows the methodology of McKinsey, which is well-known consultant. And it's, again, all research-based. It's not just, hey, we're a marketing firm. We think this would be a great ad for you, a great approach. It's all based upon who our market is, interviews, surveys, research in that regard. And that's what I'm looking for. Something that someone
He's a data
really,
man.
he is a data man. So, I appreciate not having to delve into that myself and rely on experts like that. But that was one of the elements that really attracted me to there.
Cool. All right, before I ask for a vote, any other questions, concerns? Obviously, we'll get more information as we engage if we decide to choose this group, and I need to have them come in and show us maybe some stuff.
I'd like to do that. I would say most firms didn't come and say, here's your plan, it's what you should do, which I did appreciate. There was more information to gather, and they kind of proposed a potential plan, but said, hey, we'd have to go through a few weeks. Really, most firms said that, including capacity. So I think once they're engaged, if you approve, and they have a real plan together, I'd love them to come before the board and kind of outline the next year ahead of us for that.
Great.
I think that would be the best decision, because we need to at least be able to give input on what we think could be tweaked.
Yeah.
For sure.
Cool. All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to accept staff's recommendation to hire capacity marketing for 1 year for marketing PR.
Make that motion.
Thank you, Dean.
I was thinking to wait until they come in here to present, or we vote on that. So we can ask questions.
I would hope not, only because we have in staff, and Marty was a big part of this process, by the way, of all these interviews, follow-up research that we did and everything. Again, that when they would come in, they would be engaged by us and do their research, put together a plan. That's going to take a few weeks for them to put together a very detailed plan. I'd like them to come and present that. Not so much for approval, but to lay out for you. And as Sue said, maybe provide some feedback, maybe some changes that could be suggested. But I hope, as it was kind of charged on staff for us to run this and make a recommendation, I'm hoping that you can go on our the time that we put into this. Marty, if you have anything to add, please do. But I appreciate you being a part of the process. And as you know, it was a very difficult decision at the end because a lot of them brought a lot to the table.
It was really just for time constraints and whatever to listen to. So I'm comfortable with my motion to accept that.
And that's the last thing I'll add, Dr. Orrick, is we are anxious to get going. As you know, we've been attacked, frankly, really out there in the various media outlets, and wrongfully so, really. So we want to just get out there and not just do it willy-nilly ourselves. We should do that's what I've been doing, response here, response there. Really a well-orchestrated plan to address all these things.
We need to get ahead of this.
Yeah. Well, in retrospect, the only thing I would add, maybe there should have been the first one. We
Yeah.
Had we known what we know now, we probably would have been way up.
I don't know, having counsel though was pretty serious.
Kind of important as well.
All right, so. All right,
Agreed.
cool, all right. All right, so with that, we have a motion on the table from Dean, a second.
We don't have a section yet.
I'll make it. Thank you, John. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Carried unanimously.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, staff, for all the work that you did in doing that.
Thank you.
We look forward to, seeing the fruits of, some of that stuff, some of that. Next on the agenda, vote on committee assignments. Once again, we did this in OCFC. Same exact slate. Any questions, concerns? Without that, I'll entertain a motion to accept the committee assignments. Thank you, Dean. I'll make the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, carried unanimously. And then once again, draft budgets for the parish reports. This will be on page 1 and 2 of the 3-page draft budgets. We'll be voting on 2024 through 2026 draft budgets. For that, like I said, just a draft. So it can go into that requirement from the state. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? Can I entertain a motion? Sorry. Not too fast sometimes. I'll make that motion. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sue. Without any further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carried unanimously. All right.
Mr. Chairman, if I can interject,
Yeah.
I got a note from Council Sue Katzoff. Her partner, but her associate from Bousquet Holstein, who handles litigation for us. We had an executive session with him last month. We'd like to do that again this month with your you present. He has a little time constraint, so she's asking if perhaps we do that and then come back for our chairman and CEO report.
Okay,
That's okay.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
As long as we limit some time, because I know we have some constraints here as well, so. Yeah, let's, so I'll entertain a motion to go into session to discuss, potential litigation.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Second, Mark. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Good evening, everyone. We just came out of executive session of the Orange County Industrial Development Agency. Today is Wednesday, October 19th, 2022. In executive session, we discussed potential litigation. Coming out of that, we're still in new business. So we'll finish up new business. And do I have a motion to add anything to the agenda?
I actually have to do that. I'm sorry. It's the worst thing. Paris reporting. You and I talked about this. We need to work on our Paris reporting by November 1st. We had been working with Julie Marshall from Harris Beach. We, of course, are not working with Harris Beach anymore as bond counsel, but we have the opportunity to continue to work with Julie on a per hour basis. Harris Beach is fine with that. I will say that I've spoken with both our general counsel and bond counsel. They felt it's most appropriate that they do not do that. I do have rates to compare, but I have Julie's, if I can just send this along, just quickly her profile, John, if you would please. Because she has a lot of expertise in this. She even ran an IBA and she was an economic development director. And their rates are reasonable at $230 an hour. Bousquet Holstein, by the way, would be between Sue, her associate, and paralegal at $325, $305, and $220 an hour, respectively. RBT is a little different. It would cost about $2,500 for one Paris report, $4,500 if they did both OCFC and OCIDA. But I will tell you that staff has really enjoyed working with Julie. She does a tremendous job, has a tremendous bedside manner, so to speak. We'd like to continue to work with Paris with Julie, not connected to any other legal work, of course. I wonder if our counsel could chime in about even you, Chris, as we talked about in your interview and such. Any concerns about using Harris Beach for this portion?
Not at all.
Okay.
She's a known entity to do this type of work. We don't do it at all. So we can't do much of that one.
Thank you. And Sue?
I agree. I could not agree more.
Okay, terrific. So looking for authorization to continue to work with Harris Beach just on this portion for Paris report.
Discussion? Entertain a motion?
I would make that motion. Harris reports are important for our visibility.
Any requirement? Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Torelli?
Yes.
Tim Burley?
Yes.
Walsky?
Yes.
Rinaldi?
Yes.
Green?
Yes.
ODOT?
Yes.
Palladino?
Yes.
So, thank you. That's everything on the agenda and the extra item. Anything coming out of exec session, anything we need to either vote on or recap on the legal side? We don't have to recap any of that, or?
You don't need to recap your conversation at all. However, if there is anyone who wants to make a motion based upon the discussion had in executive session, now would be the appropriate time.
Because there was a motion passed in executive session. Do we have to say that?
No, there wasn't.
Wasn't
No,
there?
A motion to end executive session.
Right.
Out of executive session, I'll make a motion to continue with counsel on the litigation against Mr. Dowd in regards to his activities when he was counsel of the Orange County IDA and Orange County Funding Corporation.
Mr. Chairman, that's fine. You don't need to remake those motions. They were noted. I took note of them. They will appear in your minutes. It was okay to make those motions within executive session as long as they appear in the ultimate minutes, which they will because I kept track of them. So you are all set on those two motions, but if there were any other motions, that was my only point. If there's any other motions someone wanted to make, now would be the appropriate time.
Well, does anyone want to add anything to the new business section, which would potentially talk about what we discussed in executive session?
I would.
All right.
I
What
would
you
like
talk about?
to add in a letter received from the Community Foundation of Orange County. And I would also like to put forth a motion to pay the 3 outstanding invoices from past business of 2021.
Can staff list the 3 that we're talking about?
Yes, we're talking about Hudson Valley Agribusiness Development Center, HVADC, Women's Development, Enterprise Development Center, WEDC, and a fund through the Community Foundation of Orange and Sullivan known as the Friends of the Orange County Youth Bureau.
Mouse?
Right, you're gonna get me on that one.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. We haven't seen the amounts.
I know WEDC was 25,000. I wish I had these in front of me. What's it, agents?
We could just
25,000 for HVADC.
25,000? No.
The letter, so let's see.
What's up there?
I apologize. So this is,
I thought it was around 6.
yeah, their agreement right here. October 21. That's this place where you find this. We don't have any this Marty, right? This one is October of 21, so I think that was what they submitted, trying to be part of. Is the letters talk about, yeah,
This one's exactly 10,000.
10,000 is the youth bureau for sure.
Yes.
So you could make your motion in an amount not to exceed. We know it's not, we know it is not in excess of $75,000 in the aggregate. I don't have the specific numbers in front of me, but
Yeah, that's the easiest way to do it. So I would like to amend the motion on the floor to pay the 3 outstanding invoices not to total more than $75,000.
Second by Jim. Discussion.
I just want to make sure that if we're voting yes, that they've hit all the requirements of any agreement. So if they had to hit 5 or 6 milestones, that those requirements are.
Opinion of staff?
We're satisfied.
Back when we, and I apologize for my memory at this point, but back when several months ago, when we had it in finance committee, that's when I was analyzing that, and I absolutely felt that they met the milestones that were spelled out in their letter.
They did their presentations, that was in public.
Correct, it was.
Are we going to take each one of them at a time and vote, or because?
It's a group.
Well, the motion was made for
Yeah,
3
but
out of the 6.
I would abstain, the women enterprise, because receive services from them, so I'll stay out.
The motion is to pay the 3 invoices that have been submitted, not all 6, just those who did the work and submitted their paperwork for it.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that for the women enterprise, I'll stay out.
Yes, it's one motion, so you'd have to abstain for all of them, for the,
The only other comment I'll make is, well, I don't know, but I guess I stay when I vote it, but.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
we have a
We
second.
have a second from Jim. So any further comment? I'll make a comment. I think that this is totally incorrect for the IDA to do. I think one of them is circumventing the Orange County legislature process, a budget. I think another one is doing stuff outside of the region or outside of the county. And I think a third one is just paying people salaries. So with that, I'm going to be voting no. And this board has previously not passed this resolution in the past, but it's on the table. So that's my discussion. Any further discussion? With that, roll call, Bill.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Further, so my discussion is this. While I agree with all the comments you've made, and I also think that we are all in agreement that we will not be funding any of these specific ones or anything similar to these going forward. We do have an obligation to honor our previous commitments, regardless of whether or not they were ours in this room or not. But it was the IDA that made these agreements, and we have to honor them. But going forward, absolutely nothing. There was absolutely no commitment going forward.
Any further discussion?
No, I was just the same thing, I voted the day before, but I was gonna say that the same thing is that I just believe that they gave their presentations, they count on this money, I think they were in good faith, not understanding, what they were dealing with at the time, so.
So I'll make an addition to the discussion. This previous board that all got let go or voted on this and weren't allowed to do this. They're not allowed to grant money. So I don't know if this should be coming out of the IDA account and be voted on the IDA side, on the funding corporation, coming out of that side. But when all said and done, IDAs are not supposed to grant money. So I think voting for this in the positive, while some people may believe it may put this to bed, I think it's an improper act of an IDA to be giving, granting money like this to organizations without a specific detailed RFP, RFQ, and process. It's different when you have contracts for council, contracts for like shovel-ready programs, different things like that. But just to give money to organizations, well, the organizations may be good. Just to give them money, I think is not part of the IDA's mission. And that's my final thing on it.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but it was a past act. And as part of that past act, we inherited it. And as part of that, we could inherit a lawsuit that we will lose.
Well, that's of your opinion, Jim,
Yeah,
and I think that, continuing on bad practices is something that I cannot vote for. I just can't do it. This is not what the IDA is meant to do. I'm sorry, but, it's not to detriment to these organizations. While I don't know all of them, personally or professionally. I'm sure they do a good job on what they do, but there are distinct ways for organizations like that to obtain funding, whether it's through state programs or through the county budget process. You know, the three that we're not talking about are us giving money back to the county for the foreign trade zone. I don't know why that's being left off. If we're gonna give money away, let's give it away, you know.
They did not send us a voucher requesting payment.
No, but we know that they've done work. You know, you actually did the work, Bill. You know, so you could literally talk to the work that you did for the foreign trade zone. So that would be another amount of money that we would have to do. I mean, $75,000 is a significant amount that I don't believe that this IDA should be funding towards other not-for-profits that don't have a direct tie to our mission. So
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I'll clarify those. Kelly Riley to the rescue. Thank you, Kelly. HVADC, $25,000. WEDC, WEDC, $30,000. And Youth Bureau, $10,000. Friends of the Orange County Youth Bureau, $10,000. So a total of 65.
any further discussion? All right. So the vote is to vote to pay 3 out of the 6. And the amounts of, or not to exceed 75,000, but now that we have it, do we want to amend that to 25, 30, and 10?
I would amend it to the amount on the vouchers, which totals $65,000. The important part of this is the vouchers have been submitted. We're not paying anybody who hasn't submitted. And I would also, if somebody wants to put some kind of motion out there, to cut off the time frame for submitting vouchers.
I think you need to call the roll on this one before we take a second motion.
I'm sorry, who seconded your motion?
Jim,
Jim, okay. Great. Roll
any
call.
further discussion? Roll call.
Torelli,
No.
Tamburri,
Yes.
Walsky,
Yes.
Rinaldi,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
ODOT, Palladino. Yes. That's 5 yeas, 1 nay, and 1 abstention. Motion passes. Subsequent motion?
Yes, I would like to put a motion on the floor to close out the time period for submitting vouchers for any agreed contracts from 2021 to reimburse. I don't even know what you would call these. Pardon? Any claims for monies owed.
That's your motion?
That's my motion, dated today.
Second by Mark Green.
Discussion? Council, what does that mean?
I think what you're trying to say is that with respect to any of these 3 additional agents, and I'm calling them that, that's just because that's what you've called them, that they have until 30 days from now, you have to pick the time, Sue,
Okay.
to submit invoices on those contracts. You can't, you have to phrase it that way, otherwise it's too broad. You can't limit your liability if somebody trips and falls on one of your buildings.
All right, so I'm gonna amend that to say the 3 outstanding agents.
What about the other agents of the idea that could, foreign trade zone, for example, isn't it for any past agent or an agent from 2021?
The 3 outstanding agents from 2021 who have failed to submit invoices today have 30 days from today's motion to submit any paperwork requesting reimbursement.
That's the motion.
So it covers anybody from 2021 who's got their hand out. They have 30 days from today to try and get paid, otherwise forget it.
Mark, you still second that motion?
Discussion. Once again, I'll be voting against this because we're not supposed to be paying anybody grant money to organizations that did not have a direct mission with the IDA or the OCFC. So I'll be voting against. Any further discussion? Okay. Roll call.
Torelli,
No.
Tamburri,
Yes.
Walsky,
Yes.
Rinaldi, yes. Green,
Yes.
ODOT,
Yes.
Palladino.
Yes.
5 to 1, motion passes.
6 to 1.
6 to 1, I'm sorry, my math is terrible. 6 to 1. Any other matters? Sue? to adjourn, sir?
Did you want to talk real quick about investing, or do you want to?
Yes.
It's a, right now, if you want to add something to the agenda, now's the time.
Our next finance committee is November 8th, at which time we could go into real, discuss that at length.
Sure.
I know there's an opportunity cost there, but a lot of, a lot was discussed now, and I'd like to really leave adequate time for that issue. Okay. Sir, if we want to take a motion to adjourn.
Up to the pleasure of the board.
I'll put a motion to adjourn for this evening.
All those in- second? Jim, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
And